Hi, and welcome back to Score Connect. We're talking with Sherry Deutschmann, the founder and CEO of Braintrust. We're going to continue our conversation about experience sharing versus advice giving. And so I'd really like to understand more about the tactic of experience sharing and how that can help business owners grow.
Right, so in the Braintrust setting, what happens is a woman brings her business opportunity or business challenge to the table, and the other women in her group ask her questions to make sure that they understand the real situation.
To clarify.
To clarify, exactly. And then instead of jumping in to give advice, they take a moment to reflect on a time when they've been in a similar circumstance with similar emotions, and then one by one they share, well, this happened to me. It's not exactly what happened to you, but it's similar. And this was my thought process and how the actions that I took. And then they can share what worked and what didn't work. Then go on to the next woman who shares her experiences in that same realm. And then the listener, taking notes like crazy, can determine which of those experiences,
the takeaways.
Yeah, what the takeaways are. And then there's no you should or have you thought of this. It's more of, this happened to me. It might not work for you. Or as a matter of fact, I did this and the results were abysmal. But it might work for you because your circumstances are different.
But it allows the other person to make that judgment for themselves.
Exactly.
So rather than putting the should on it, it allows them to say, well, if that didn't work for her, is my situation similar enough that it might not work for me either? Or if this worked for this other woman, maybe that would work for me instead, and kind of make their own judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there have been studies done about the psychological and the physiological effects of advice. And I won't go into all the details, but often we experience advice the same way we experience pain. I mean, it's painful.
Oh, wow.
And even though we ask for advice, most of us do not want it.
Yeah.
And
well, because people don't inherently want to be told what to do.
That we don't. But we like telling people what to do.
Sure.
We like giving advice.
Yeah.
But it's just being aware of the effects that it can have on someone else and their decision making.
Well, and I appreciate what you mentioned in there about taking a moment to reflect. So if someone's sharing a problem and your gut instinct, we like giving it, but right, we like to just, the reaction is to say, well, here's what you should do. The moment to reflect is pausing to choose between a reaction or a response.
Right.
My reaction is, I want to tell you what you should do. Right. My calculated response is, here's what happened to me, and you can glean from that what you'd like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a really strong, I know you chose the word Braintrust for a key reason here. So, you know, Braintrust is this group of women that are coming together, like you said, to sort of share these experiences. Why did you choose to make this a women-based organization, entrepreneurial? You mentioned, you know, trying to get them to the $1 million. Are there specific challenges that you're trying to combat or to help with women in business? How does that impact them differently?
How much time do we have?
We do not have enough time.
So I built my first company to $40 million in revenue, and that really put me in rarefied air because only 2% of the 13 million women business owners in the U.S. ever get to $1 million in revenue.
Wow.
Only about 7% of men do.
Yeah.
But some magic happens when you get to $1 million. You start to pay yourself a good salary.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes. You're hiring,
I want to make money, yeah.
You're able to hire employees so they can work in the business while you work on the business. Your ability to get a line of credit or to get a loan or attract an investor is so much better. And so I felt the need, specifically because I'm in an organization called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and it operates much the same way as Braintrust. In fact, it was the catalyst for me starting Braintrust. But the problem is you can't join until you get to $1 million in revenue.
Right,
so
right.
all of us needing so much help and guidance and learning from the experience of others, and yet we can't.
Until you get there. So
Yes.
you need the help to get there.
Yes.
But if it's not available until you get there, it's a very chicken and egg situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I created Braintrust for those women who don't yet qualify for
Right.
programs like that, to help them get to $1 million. There are 17 of those groups operating in Nashville now.
Wow, yeah.
And
in 2 years? Two and a half you've been?
2.5 years.
Yes.
And more than 10% of them have hit the $1 million mark.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I
That's
think-
your key club, right?
Yes, the Key
Yeah.
Club. So, focusing on the challenges of women, a man actually gave me the most succinct reason I've ever heard about why women struggle to have the same success men
Sure.
do. And it's because most of us don't have wives. And most of them do.
Oh, that's all we need is wives?
Yeah, well, well, think about that. Most successful men
Sure.
have a wife. She's shuttling the kids to and from school and daycare and to the soccer games. When they're sick, she's
That's a
the one.
partner.
Yeah, she's staying home. When they're sick, she's sacrificing her career for them. She's giving birth,
Yeah.
staying home to take care of that. She's paying the bills. She's seeing that the groceries are there. She's picking up the dry cleaning. All of those things make it possible for him to be,
Focused.
yes. And that's one of the biggest differences. And I loved that he pointed that out.
Yeah. That's good insight.
Yeah.
Great insight. So, when you're working with the women in this organization, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see? You mentioned a few of them, but like you're dealing with women that are getting up to that $1 million mark, and that's very similar to our SCORE audience, right? Most of our SCORE clients are trying to, grow a business, a startup, and most of them are going to be under that $1 million mark. What do you think are one or two of the biggest challenges that they have?
I think the biggest is access to capital.
Interesting, yeah.
I think last year the stats were something like $300 billion invested by private equity and venture capital in U.S. businesses. And guess how much women got?
Probably not enough.
Only about 2%.
Wow. Yeah.
Even though, and this makes me crazy, even though the data proves that women-owned businesses have a much greater ROI for the investors.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's incredible data there that shows that it's somewhere between 30 and 60% greater ROI on
women-owned business.
women-owned businesses, and yet
Wow.
the investors still invest in male-owned businesses. So that's part of it. Historically, the deck has been stacked against us when it comes to getting credit. I mean, heck, it was not until the 70s that we could even have a credit card.
All by ourselves.
All by ourselves.
Yeah, like big girls.
And my mom's credit card as I was growing up had my dad's name on it, So
Wow.
that's the way it had to be in the 70s and I think in like 76 it changed. But those barriers for women are still there, although
Yeah.
they're not as great. I believe just access to networks we're inhibited in that way. So
Sure.
that's something that SCORE and organizations like Braintrust do help people meet others that they need to know, and we become really critical connectors
Right.
to resources that these women need.
Yeah. Well, and that's definitely the goal of SCORE, is to be able to connect to other groups,
Yes.
organizations that have specialized approaches. So, if you're a SCORE client and you know that you need a better connection to women-owned businesses, you need a peer-to-peer, network, that kind of thing, Braintrust is a great option. But I think that there's a lot of great information in there for all business owners, especially around the advice versus experience share and how we come to the table as business owners to try to help each other grow, which is really great. So I think, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the event that you have coming up, Braintrust Live.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're very excited. It's your first live event, right?
Yes.
And when is that? I'm sorry?
It's September 21st
Okay.
at the St. L, which
Okay.
is an event space over in Wedgwood, Houston. It will be from 1 to 7 p.m. And interestingly, with this topic, we're having uber successful women business owners who are there to tell us their real stories. And that's the theme, the real stories, the untold stories. So
Some of those failures we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of those, where their companies almost imploded.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to hear from one woman who grew her business to $5 million in the first 2 years, and she did implode.
Oh, wow.
And had her assets.
Too fast.
Yep. She ran out of capital, but she's going to explain how that happened. and how her company assets were auctioned off by the bank.
It's amazing. I want to hear more about that and the Braintrust Live event. We're going to go to commercial and come right back for a few more tidbits from Sherry Deutschmann.